So, Mr. President of Ukraine, Honorable President of Republic of Moldova, Honorable Head of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, the Director General of IAEA, the President of the EBRD, Your Excellencies, Ministers, Special Representatives, Ambassadors, friends and colleagues. Today we gathered here in the space which changed the history of world and the Europe forever, and that's a special event. Here we clearly understand that nuclear safety is not a truly national issue. It's either common safety or it is non-existent. The 26th of April is very important for Ukraine and for the world. 40 years ago, a nuclear cloud knew no borders. It covered not only Ukraine but Germany, Sweden, Finland, Great Britain and other countries all over the world. And in 10 years after the accident, after the disaster, it became evident that the sarcophagus which was constructed after the disaster is being destroyed. It became clear that new safe confinement is needed. The project was supported by EBRD. The donations from 40 countries were collected, and the bank also contributed more than 700 million euros. The new safe confinement should have provided security for hundreds of years, but after the Russian strike on this confinement, we have to mobilize resources for its reconstruction again. We speak about hundreds of millions of euros, and that's important for Ukraine, for the world. And today our partners and friends, EBRD, are ready to give us a helping hand, and now it's an honor for me to give the floor to the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, for his welcoming words. Thank you, Denis Anatolievich. First of all, I would like to express gratitude to all our friends and partners, all our guests. It's really very important that in such a day, Ukraine, here, after the occupation of the station, we can be here after what was done by our military, after what was done by the heroic workers of this station who together freed the station, and I thank you all for being here, for Ukraine not being alone. Denis said that we have high-level representatives of our friends, and I express my gratitude to the President of the Republic of Moldova, Maia Sandu, for being here. Thank you. We feel your support, and we feel support of the citizens of your great country who are together with us, and I also express my gratitude to Director General of International Atomic Agency, Mr. Rafael Grossi, for 14 times during the war. The Director General Grossi, 14 times he visited Ukraine. That's a great honor for us. And it's not just words. You really did a lot. And we have a constructive dialogue, high-level dialogue with IAEA, and we are able to solve a lot of issues and questions. Mr. Shmigal said that we have with us the president of EBRD, Odile Renaud-Basso, and we're also grateful for EU commissioners for being here, and the ministers of energy, minister of finance, ministers of foreign affairs, so this great diplomatic corps supporting us. We're also grateful to the Speaker of our Parliament and all representatives Parliament of Ukraine, and we're also grateful to the envoys of the United States and the European Union. And really, today we mark the 40th anniversary. 40 years ago, a terrible disaster happened in Chernobyl, which had global influence and consequences. And today we know everything about the reasons of that catastrophe, all the process and the chain of decisions and mistakes which led to this accident and explosion on the fourth power unit of Chernobyl nuclear power plant. People remember the heroic firefighters, our first responders who saved the station, the people, and I had an honor today to give honorable rewards to the people who worked here or who still continue working here, and on behalf of all our guests and all Ukrainians, I express gratitude to these people for your service to our country. So thank you all, and I wish to give you a round of applause. So thank you for your support. All applause of gratitude is to you today. Thank you. The world made conclusions from this catastrophe, both in the terms of safety and moral and politics, but no one could have expected that in just a couple of decades after Chernobyl disaster and after everything was done to provide nuclear security, to protect lives, no one could have expected that someone would want to turn Chernobyl, the facilities, the zone, the exclusion zone, to turn it again into the territory of war. And the worst thing is when the Russians came to Chernobyl, we saw that they don't understand where they come and what happened here. So that's what we need to understand about today's Russia, about this state, about their level of culture and their attitude towards people, life. So the Russians tried to organize their offensive towards Kiev through this territory. They dig their military positions here. They used this land to drive their military vehicles. They organized artillery positions here. They destroyed equipment and humiliated people working here on the station and the facilities nearby. And today, still, some of our young men, including National Guardsmen who guarded the station, they're still in captivity of Russia. We managed to return some of them, but some of them still remain there in captivity. We remember about them and we will return them. Russians turned the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the largest the Zaporizhzhia power plant. They turned it into the military facility. They store ammunition there, military equipment there, and they actually take the city of Enerhodar hostage. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was without electricity for 14 times. So when we deal with Russia, we must understand that we deal with such a stupid force which should be limited and to provide safety for us all. So we must fight evil, we must support those who support life actively. So even the fact that Russians managed to hit the confinement with a drone, the confinement which is covering the remains of the fourth power unit, as Denis Shmyhal said. So it shows us that Russia cannot be a participant of civilized international relations. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's important for the world not to follow the Russian lies concerning this war and concerning everything they do towards Europe. Everything they do proves that there could be no cooperation with Russia until they finish this war and turn to diplomacy. Every month this war continues, proves us that the pressure is not enough. I thank everybody supporting Ukraine, and I want to remind you that only the joint efforts can secure life and security. We have a lot to do, and here in the exclusion zone, confinement in the Ukrainian energy system overall, we must prepare to the future winter, and for this we need sufficient funding for Ukraine, so that whatever Russians do, we must be prepared. Our government team will present our needs and the outlooks for joint work. It is important that sanctions against Russia for this war not only continue, but that Russia is unable to adapt. So I'm grateful to the European Union for unblocking the 20th sanction package, and for that it will start working. I'm grateful for all countries which are enforcing sanctions. It's important that sanctions against the Russian nuclear sphere also be imposed. And we must say confidently that only Ukrainian specialists, Ukrainian security protocols can ensure that there will be no nuclear problems at Zaporizhzhia power plant. And it is also important to constantly strengthen Ukrainian anti-aircraft defense. It's important for all our infrastructure and also for Chernobyl facilities, and it will show Russia that they must end this war. They must stop this war. That's the main what the international community can do. Russia must do some real steps towards peace. So I would like to express my gratitude to all the countries, all leaders, all international organizations which are working with us every day and help us move towards peace and safety. Say thank you for your support and glory to Ukraine. Thank you, Mr. President, and I give the floor to the President of Republic of Moldova, Maya Sandu.
Zelensky, Excellencies, we are standing on ground that changed the world, and we all know why. What I want to reflect on today is not the explosion itself, it is what the explosion revealed. A Soviet regime that placed its own reputation above people's lives, that kept people in the dark while a reactor burned, because the powerful believed they had the right to decide what the powerless were permitted to know. More than 3,500 Moldovans were among those sent here as liquidators, many of them given inadequate protection and incomplete truth, asked to be brave on behalf of a system that did not return that bravery with honesty. Moldova remembers them today. Chernobyl became a moment of rupture, a sudden clarity for millions of people about the nature of the system under which they were living, a system that would send its own people into a burning reactor and call it duty. Once people saw it for what it was, they could not unsee it, and history turned. What followed gave the world reason for hope. Nations that did not always agree came together and over 2 decades built what stands behind us today. The new safe confinement is proof that shared responsibility, sustained over time, can accomplish extraordinary things. That when the international community acts with unity and purpose, it can contain even the worst of disasters. That proof matters more than ever, because the contempt that caused this disaster has not disappeared. The same disregard for human life that defined the Soviet response is visible today in Russia's strikes on Ukrainian cities, in occupied nuclear facilities, in the war that Moscow refuses to even call a war. When Russian forces occupied Chernobyl in 2022 and then Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, they were making a deliberate choice to weaponize the anxiety that places like this carry in the hearts of millions. That fear reached Moldova too. It reached all of us. The arch here was built by the international community as a shared act of responsibility towards all of humanity. When a Russian drone struck it last year, it was not only infrastructure that was damaged, it was a statement that what the world builds together in a spirit of peace and protection can be targeted and broken. That statement must be answered. Nuclear safety has always demanded continuity and collective commitment across governments, across years. The same spirit that built the new safe confinement must now carry the work forward. On this, I trust the international community to meet the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, 40 years on, the lessons of this place are very much present. We learned what it looks like when a state treats its own people as expendable, and we learned that the price is paid not only by those in the immediate danger, but by generations to come. We learned that nuclear safety is a permanent responsibility. We learned that radiation and fear travel without asking for permission, and that no country is an island when catastrophe strikes. And above all, we learned what kind of society we want to build, one that tells its citizens the truth, one that sends no one into danger without protection and without honesty, one where the state is truly worthy of the trust placed in it. That is the future Ukraine is fighting for right now, and it is the future Moldova is building step by step alongside our partners and friends. To the men and women who came to this place 40 years ago, from Moldova, from Ukraine, from across this region, and to their families, we honor you today. Your courage was real, your sacrifice was not in vain. Thank you.
Дякую, пані президент.
Thank you, Mrs. President, and I give the floor to the President of European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, Ms. Odile Nobasso.
And Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to address you today at this important conference dedicated to restoring security and safety at the Chornobyl nuclear power plant. And it's also deeply moving to participate in the ceremony marking the 40th anniversary of the catastrophe, and to remember and pay tribute to the brave men and women who led the immediate response to the disaster. The immense personal sacrifice and heroism of those individuals cannot be overstated. Many put their own lives at grave risk, and countless others paid a lasting price to protect communities far beyond the reactor site. Their courage, resilience, and sense of duty in the face of the unimaginable danger continue to command our respect and gratitude, reminding us of both the human cost of disaster and the extraordinary capacity for selflessness in times of crisis. Chornobyl is a site woven in the DNA of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The completion of the new safe confinement in 2019, following nearly 2 decades of international partnership, was one of the bank's proudest moments. For nearly 2 decades, we have led the world's largest international collaboration on nuclear safety. That effort shows what can be achieved when nations come together with a shared dedication. The completion of the new safe confinement allowed Ukraine, for the first time since the accident, to look to the future with confidence that it had the infrastructure and expertise to manage Chernobyl's uniquely complex legacy safely and securely. Today, we recognize with frustration, regret, and a measure of anger that this confidence has been shattered. The Russian drone attack on the new safe confinement has placed nearly 2 decades of patient international collaboration in jeopardy. As we heard today, the attack has severely compromised the Arch's 2 core functions: confinement and a possibility for the safe deconstruction of the old sarcophagus and destroyed reactor unit. This damage is extensive, the pace to recovery uncertain, and the clock is ticking. At the EBRD, working in partnership with our Ukrainian colleagues and in close cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, we are determined to support the restoration of the NSC's functionality. Immediately after the attack, we commissioned a detailed damage assessment with the support of the consortium that constructed the arch. Preliminary technical assessments indicate that corrosion affecting the steel structure could jeopardize the arch's long-term safety. The program now underway will establish a robust technical and decision-making basis before any final commitment to full construction works. Donors such as EU, France, and the UK have already approved an allocation of 30 million to fund this essential preparatory phase. However, we must be frank, the resources currently available are far from sufficient. Our assessments indicate that repair works required to restore the NSC to full functionality by 2030 could cost at least 500 million euros. So additional funding is clearly needed into 2026 and 2027 to move beyond emergency measures and preparatory work to full implementation. In closing, Chernobyl reminds us not only of the consequences of the catastrophe, but also of what is possible when the international community acts with unity, determination, and long-term purpose. The new safe confinement was never merely an engineering achievement. It was a statement of shared responsibility, solidarity with Ukraine, and of our collective commitment to nuclear safety beyond national borders. That's why I'm confident that together we can once more protect this site, restore its vital functions, and ensure that Chernobyl remains secure for future generations. Thank you.
Дякую, пані президент.
Thank you, Vice President of EBRD. And I pass the floor now to Director General of IAEA, Mr. Rafael Grossi.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure, it's an honor to be here, Mr. President, Madam President, dear friends. I guess 26 April 1986 is one of those dates, at least for those of us that have some age already, that we remember. We remember what we were doing when we learned what was happening here. We remember those images coming through the news from a system which was very opaque, and we were discovering images of something that resembled science fiction. That terrible day, nevertheless, marked the start of a global movement towards cooperation, international cooperation. Only 2 weeks after the accident, my predecessor Hans Blix was here, and the IAEA started a relationship that has become permanent with Chernobyl. Today, as has been said by the President and others who took the floor before me, we have the example. We commemorate those who gave their lives or who worked so valiantly. But I would like to add another word of recognition, if you allow me, Mr. President, for all those in the Ukrainian nuclear sector working today in Rivne, Khmelnytsky, South Ukraine, and of course here. Our people know that. We have, as you know, IAEA colleagues who live here. This is something we agreed with you, Mr. President, you remember, in 2022. So the flag of the IAEA is here alongside yours in all of these facilities. And we know of every moment where there is an attack, every moment where there is a blackout. And I think an homage to those who, under tremendous stress, continue to work diligently to make sure that Ukraine can continue its effort to defend itself, but also as a nation. More than 60%, Mr. Minister, you would confirm, of the energy that you produce is coming from the nuclear power plants of Ukraine. So I think we also should recognize them for their professionalism. As Madame Renaud-Basseau was saying, the efforts, the perseverance, the money that was put into this gigantic building has been severely compromised in a paradoxical way by means of a small drone. It's a sober reminder of the unexpected things that may happen. But that does not discourage us. And immediately, with our Ukrainian colleagues, with the bank and with others, we started working together first to assess the degree of the damage. Initially, we didn't think it would be so consequential and so grave. And last year, alongside other technical assessments, the IEA came up in the fall with a report, a very comprehensive report, with conclusions that were very, very concerning. But as it has been the case since 1986 and perhaps since 2022, for each problem there is a resolution to solve it. And this is exactly what we are going to do. And not only that, today with the Minister, we have signed an agreement to expand the support the IEA is giving, and in particular on a very challenging situation which is posed by the military pressure on the electrical grid and continued attacks on the critical substations that are sustaining the nuclear power plant's effort. So what I can say, Mr. President, dear friends, is that everything is in hand to continue this work, to dust ourselves off, and to continue the effort without stopping for a single minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director General, and I pass the floor to EU Commissioner for Economic Issues and Productivity, Mr. Dombrovskis.
Thank you, Chair. President Zelensky, President Sandu, President Renaud-Basseau, Director General Grossi, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Since Russia launched its full-scale invasion, Europe's commitment to support Ukraine has been unwavering. The disaster which happened here 40 years ago carried radioactive pollution far beyond Ukraine. It remains the worst nuclear accident in history, affecting thousands of lives. I would like to express the deepest gratitude to the sacrifice of countless people who helped shield the world from an even greater catastrophe. Among those liquidators, almost 20,000 were conscripted from the then-occupied Baltic states. We honor all the liquidators today. The EU has been at the forefront of the international effort to address the consequences of the Chornobyl disaster and to support nuclear safety in Ukraine more broadly. The EBRD has played a leading role here, and the EU has been a major donor. Since 1991, it has provided more than €1 billion in nuclear safety assistance to Ukraine, including more than a quarter of the total funding to construct the new safe confinement. 40 years later, Russia's reckless attacks have undermined these efforts. The damage to the new confinement we see here in Chernobyl risks having disastrous consequences for all of us. Make no mistake, Russia will be held accountable, but waiting for this is not an option. We must now enable urgent repairs upon which our own safety depends. And the EU will play its part for this joint exercise. More broadly, since the start of the war, we have already provided more than €200 billion in support to Ukraine, and we will deliver further €90 billion this year and next, which will include support for Ukraine's energy sector. Our assistance is not just an act of solidarity, It is an investment in confronting this imminent danger and building a more secure Europe for all. Thank you.
Thank you, European Commissioner. Thanks to the President of Ukraine, to the President of Moldova. Thank you, dear guests. Now we proceed with the second part, and we will watch a short video meanwhile.
This is not just a site of the past, it's a center of knowledge, responsibility, and international collaboration.
War changed everything.
New online Russian drones damaged Chornobyl nuclear power plant.
I was making a cup of tea when I saw the news. My first thoughts were disbelief that I couldn't imagine being come to this.
I received a message from my friend who was on site at the time, and I asked him, was he joking? And the answer was no, and I realized how serious the situation was.
Nobody in the world can even imagine that nuclear power plant can be a battlefield. Unfortunately, here we are.
The damage of Arch is very serious because now we have condition when radioactive release pass through the whole.
The damage to the new safe confinement strike was twofold. Firstly, it hugely reduced the ability to confine against further radiological releases of contaminated material from the sarcophagus. And secondly, because we don't have confinement, we cannot proceed with deconstruction of the old facility. The solution is going to be complex. It's highly unlikely, I'm afraid, that we'll be able to simply repair Arch to its original design. We think we have around 4 years to restore the functionality of Arch. After that date, we have a risk of corrosion which will massively complicate any long-term solutions. The consequences of not doing anything are that the site will slowly decay, revert to the status that it had before any of the international community was there, and will slowly get more and more dangerous.
The job isn't done by the international community. We should unite again to fix this and to make this site safe.
When we call for help, it is not because Ukraine failed. What we build together, we now must protect together.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing with us this event. So we do start the second part of the event. My name is Anatoly Kutsol, I'm Deputy Minister of Energy, and it's my honor to continue with the second part and moderating it. So I would like to use this opportunity and to invite for keynote speech Mr. Denis Shmyhal, First Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, Minister of Energy. Please.
Дякую дуже, дорогі друзі.
Thank you, dear friends, dear colleagues. Russia has once again brought nuclear threat to European policy. Russia occupied Chernobyl zone and also captured Zaporizhia NPP and targeted the arch of the new safe confinement with a drone. Systemically, it attacks the energy infrastructure of Ukraine, including substations that ensure safe safe operation of nuclear generation. Since the beginning of the war, there have been 155 Russian attacks on substations that maintain NPPs. Every successful hit is a risk to undermine stable work of the system and pressure on safe operation of the units. So we need to respond in a strong way, as mentioned today by the President of Ukraine, and I would like to specifically focus on three three areas. The first one is resources. Ukraine needs at least 500 million euros in order to recover and make safe the confinement. This is what we need for our joint safety. The second area is protection. We need modern air defense systems, anti-ballistic ones in particular, and also anti-drone ones. Every new level of protection is a system that protects NPP sites, and that's a contribution into safety of the entire Europe, because radioactive clouds know no borders. Third thing is sanctions. Russia must not remain just an ordinary stakeholder in the system while it uses nuclear sites as for blackmail and warfare. We insist on even more severe sanctions on nuclear sector of Russia, including limitations for Rosatom and suspension of Russia in the board of IAEA. And we are grateful to the EU for the 20th package of sanctions. However, as mentioned today, we need to continue this pressure with sanctions. 40 years ago, liquidators in Chernobyl paid a high price to protect the world against the continental tragedy, and we owe to them. Currently, our energy sector workers and first responders, our military personnel, they are doing the same. And I'm grateful to all the partners who, together with Ukraine, with our heroes, are helping us to hold this safety line, security line for the continent and for the world. Thank you for your being with us today, and thank you for working hand in hand in these difficult times, historical times, and glory to Ukraine.
Deputy Prime Minister, for your keynote speech, I would like to invite Director of Chernobyl NPP, Mr. Serhiy Tarakanov, with his presentation. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellencies, Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The new safe confinement, the giant arch-shaped structure, is the largest movable land-based structure ever built. It was constructed near the reactor and then moved into position along tracks. It hermetically seals the old shelter, also known as sarcophagus, within it, and it's intended to allow stabilization and eventual dismantling of the old shelter without risk of further releases of radiation to the environment. It has a design lifetime of 100 years to allow for the eventual dismantling of the aging makeshift shelter from 1986 and the management of the fuel-containing material. It was designed to withstand a Class 3 tornado and an earthquake with a magnitude of 6. However, a drone strike on 14 February 2025 made a hole in the arch with the smoldering fires causing further damage over a period of weeks before being extinguished. During the blaze, the hermetic membranes of different types were burnt away over a vast area. Furthermore, while fighting the fire, emergency crews had to make 340 small holes and punctures to localize the source of ignition. What are the consequences? The NSC has lost several of its core functions. Firstly, the confinement of the radioactive material inside main volume. Secondly, enabling the safe dismantling of the unstable structures of the old shelter and removal of the fuel-containing material. Furthermore, the 100-year lifespan of NSC is not guaranteed anymore. Why is that? The arch itself consists of outer and inner cladding, forming the so-called annular space, and the main volume, which directly houses the old shelter. Since the structure is made of metal, specialized ventilation systems were designed to inhibit corrosion by maintaining relative humidity below 40% in the annular space. Furthermore, a pressure differential must be maintained between the annular space and the main volume, creating an additional barrier against the release of radioactive particles into the environment. But here is the problem. Without a sealed shell, the whole idea fails. There is now an open link between the interior and the outside world. This means we can no longer keep humidity within the required limits. As a result, corrosion will presumably start to accelerate in 2030, when the initial anti-corrosion paint applied during construction will start to degrade. We still need to monitor and calculate the full impact, But if nothing is done, we will definitely not get the 100-year lifespan as projected. Next slide, please. I can switch. Yes, thank you. The slide illustrates a preliminary assessment of the damage area to the insulating membrane within the NSC outer cladding. For the reasons outlined above, all projects for preparation for the dismantling of unstable structures within the shelter object has been put on hold until the full functionality of the arch is restored. The loss of NSC functionality was confirmed by a special IAEA mission we hosted at our request in late November 2025. The head of the mission, Martin Gajdosh, is in this hall. Also, IAEA mission confirms that thanks to the actions and decisions taken by Chernobyl NPP personnel in response to the event, the fire caused only limited damage. But there is some good news. We are not sitting on our hands. Our response is divided into 3 phases. Phase 1, which involved emergency repairs, was completed by us in early October 2025. It was critical to cover the main breach with a protective shield before the onset of the heavy precipitation season. We accomplished this using our own resources in cooperation with the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Phase 2 is the interim repair. This stage requires financial assistance, and we are grateful to the donor countries that stepped up and contributed to the International Chernobyl Cooperation Account administered by the EBRD. This phase will cost 5 million euros. The contract is currently being finalized, and we plan to complete a significant portion of the work by the end of 2026, specifically sealing all the small punctures and restoring part of the hermetic membranes. Phase 3 involves the full restoration of the NSC functionality. This is an exceptionally daunting task, as the membrane that burnt away in the outer cladding was embedded within a so-called sandwich structure. Given the intense radiation fields directly above the destroyed reactor, this presents a formidable technical challenge. For this reason, the BRD has approached the French companies Bouygues and Vinci, who formed consortium Novarca II to conduct a comprehensive damage assessment and develop engineering solutions to overcome these issues. Another piece of encouraging news is that based on this, the reports the French companies have already presented to us and the donors countries, we see a feasible path to restoring the NSC full functionality within a foreseeable time frame by the end of 2030. We are currently analyzing the proposed technical approaches in coordination with the national nuclear regulator. It is essential to remember that we must operate NSC within a strict regulatory framework, adhering to all licensing requirements and nuclear and radiation safety standards. The BRD has already officially stated that the full restoration of the NSC functionality could cost up to 500 million euros. More precise numbers will be known in 18 months after we, with Novarca II, will complete the so-called early engineering and procurement works package, envisaged in the frame of Grant Agreement number 6, preliminary approved by Assembly of Donors on March 31st this year. However, one thing is clear. Ukraine does not have the financial resources to cover such an immense cost on its own. We will continue to rely on the solidarity of the international community. The challenges before us are significant, but our commitment is unwavering. The Chernobyl NPP team is doing everything possible, responsibly, transparently, and professionally to maintain nuclear and radiation safety under wartime conditions. Your continuous support is essential. Thank you for your trust, your partnership, and your dedication to Chernobyl's future.
Thank you so much, Director. Probably on behalf of all of us who are here today on your territory, we would like to thank for your kind hosts and also for all the guided tours. Thank you so much. It's impressive. I would like to turn to third part with the ministerial, and before turning to our distinguished ministers and other guests, I would like to pass the floor to EU Commissioner for Energy and Housing, Dan Jorgensen, please.
Thank you so much, dear friends. Today we remember one of the darkest days in our history. We feel once again the human tragedy, but we also honor the human courage. We honor the scientists, the engineers, and the workers from Ukraine and across the globe who sealed this site and restored safety. But today it is not enough to honor this courage. We must keep it alive. Last February, a Russian drone hit this site, setting back years of progress in an instant. The cost of its repair is not just Ukraine's burden, it is a responsibility we must all share. Substantial commitments from international donors and years of dedicated work will be needed to restore the new safe confinement and to return the site to its pre-war condition. For the second time in this very place, our determination, our responsibility, and our unity are being tested, and we must not fail. Today, I reaffirm the EU's commitment to the work that needs to be done. I reaffirm our commitment to nuclear safety, and I reaffirm our commitment to Ukraine. Together, we will align and advance our nuclear sectors, combining them into a cornerstone of our clean energy security. We will meet the highest standards of nuclear safety, radiation protection, and waste management, as demanded by our citizens. And once again, we will defeat dark days with human courage, and we will build a brighter future for Ukraine and for our Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for your kind words. I would like to turn to our colleagues from UN, and I would like to pass the floor to Tatiana Molchan, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Please.
Thank you so much. In fact, I'll be delivering this statement on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations. And I would like to start by saying that this 40th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster is not only a historical milestone and not only for Ukraine. It is a living reminder for the world of how the consequences of catastrophe can endure across generations, in the environment, in public health, in the economies, local economies, and in the lives of affected communities. This commemoration is therefore both solemn but also urgent. It calls on us to honor the past, to reflect on the lessons learned, and to renew our collective responsibility to safeguard nuclear safety and support long-term recovery and sustainable development. It is in this context that the United Nations remain steadfast in its commitment to nuclear safety, security, and peaceful use of nuclear energy, grounded in the enduring lessons of the Chernobyl disaster and the principles of international law. 4 decades after the world's worst civilian nuclear accident, Chernobyl continues to remind us of the long-term impact and consequences. And we at the United Nations have the engagement, and we have begun with urgent humanitarian assistance and has evolved over time into sustained long-term support. We also express at the United Nations grave concern over all military activities that place nuclear facilities in Ukraine at risks, including the nuclear power plant and its new safe confinement. Any damage to nuclear installations represents an unacceptable threat to human safety, the environment, and regional stability. We fully support the work of the International Atomic Energy Agency in monitoring, assessing, and mitigating risks to nuclear safety and security. The General Assembly has reaffirmed that the legacy of Chernobyl is not confined to history, but remains relevant to present and future challenges. The United Nations reaffirmed the need for maximum restraint, full respect for international humanitarian law, and the protection of all facilities, nuclear facilities. Nuclear energy must never be used as a tool of conflict. The United Nations will continue to support Ukraine, including in safeguarding nuclear safety, advancing recovery from past disaster, and ensuring that the peaceful use of nuclear energy contributes to global security rather than global risk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we turn to our colleagues from ministries. I would like to start with the Minister for Climate, Energy and Utilities of the Kingdom of Denmark, Mr. Lars Agard, please.
Thank you very much. distinguished colleagues, excellencies, partners, and maybe most, thank you for hosting this event, to the team of Chernobyl, all the brave men and women that are working here and protecting this place. From my heart, thank you very much for hosting this event. It is now 40 years ago since the Chernobyl disaster. It was a defining moment in European history. There was a before and an after. And we will all have to deal with the consequences for not just the next 40 years, but unfortunately much longer. My thoughts are with the victims, and we should use this occasion to once again confirm something that should be obvious. Nuclear safety must remain a top international priority. It is a matter of safety for humankind. Russians' repeated attacks on nuclear sites show their complete disregard for safety of even their own people. I strongly condemn these attacks. The new safety confinement, as well as other nuclear facilities, has been put at risk, and costly repairs are needed. The international community must stand united and commit to maintaining Chernobyl's critical protective infrastructure. Denmark has a long-standing commitment to nuclear safety. Through the IAEA and EBRD and other projects, we have helped improve safety standards, emergency preparedness, and the management of radioactive waste in Ukraine and other regions. As it was rightly said, radioactive particles do not recognize borders, so we will continue to provide support for this important agenda, for the safety of Ukrainian brothers and sisters, and for the safety of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. I would like to pass the floor to our colleague, Minister of Energy and Environment of the Republic of Estonia. Please, Andres Sat.
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing us here. I think it makes enormous difference to see the whole old destruction in person. So 40 years ago, these grounds were under assault, not by choice, but by the culture of incompetence and the secrecy of a dystopian regime. Today, the same grounds are still under assault, still by an incompetent and dystopian regime, but this time by choice. Chernobyl was never just a faraway tragedy for Estonia. I was 18 back in the day on the wrong side of the Iron Curtain. Thousands of Estonians took part in the cleanup efforts. Back home, people sought out remedies for a fallout, but above all, they sought reliable information. The best hope for reliable information was whatever filtered through the Iron Curtain. All this remains part of our collective memory. The Chernobyl disaster reshaped nuclear safety worldwide, profoundly affected all of Europe, and contributed to the fall of a repressive empire. It took five more years for the Soviet regime to collapse. It is now the 5th year since the large-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, and it is the 13th year since Russia's war against Ukraine began. Destruction and tragedy are once again off a scale, both literally and figuratively. Once again, it is the result of choices made by an evil regime. But this time it was no accident. It is nothing short of remarkable that Ukraine is once again carrying such a heavy burden for the security of Europe. However dark the days may feel, Ukraine is not alone. That is a sentence often repeated. What matters is that our words are kept in pace with actions. Today I can confirm that Estonia will contribute 75,000 euros to the International Chernobyl Cooperation Account. Yes, in a wider scale of destruction, this is not a large amount. But sustained support matters. If every country does their fair share, consistently, as we do in Estonia, we will be approaching the 50th anniversary in a safer Europe and in a safer world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I would like to pass the floor to Minister for Climate and Environment of Republic of Finland, Sari Multala, please.
Dear colleagues, 40 years ago, as my colleague from Estonia has just described, all of us who were here already then, I was only 7, but I still remember that day, or actually not that day, because also in Finland, even though we were not under the Iron Curtain, we still didn't get the information. Actually, the first couple of days we saw that there was higher levels of radiation both in Sweden and Finland, and none of us knew why, or not even the people working in the nuclear facilities. And a couple of days later, just in the middle of the evening news, the reporter got the information from the news agency TASS that there was an accident in Chernobyl. And of course, this was a disaster that was discouraged transparency and also accountability and inadequate nuclear safety practices. Of course, since then, much has been learned from these past failures, and nuclear safety standards have improved significantly. And yet, troubling as it is, even this site, universally regarded as a symbol of shared international responsibility, was struck last year in a drone attack. This incident reminds us that nuclear safety can never be taken for granted. It depends not only on technology, but also on respect for international norms and responsible behavior. Safety and security must always come first. Finland strongly condemns Russia's attacks against nuclear-related facilities and other critical infrastructure in Ukraine. These reckless actions have severely endangered the safety and security of Ukrainian nuclear power plants and pose risks that extend far beyond Ukrainian borders. I would like to thank Ukraine for its continued efforts to uphold nuclear safety under extremely difficult circumstances. Finland supports these efforts not only financially, but also by sharing our long-standing expertise in nuclear and radiation safety. This is reflected in our close cooperation under the Finnish-Ukrainian Radiation and Nuclear Safety Cooperation Programme. Alongside expertise, this cooperation includes concrete support, such as a new radiation monitoring vehicle expected to be in use by the end of this year. The vehicle will be more capable and better equipped than the one Finland provided in 2011. In Finland, decades of nuclear safety expertise and strong independent regulation have resulted in broad public support for nuclear energy. This experience forms an important foundation for Finland's broader support for Ukraine. To conclude, I wish to express Finland's deep appreciation for the indispensable work of the International Atomic Energy Agency and European Bank for Reconstruction and Development in ensuring nuclear safety and security at Ukrainian nuclear facilities. Finland will continue its active support to IAEA, as well as its long-standing bilateral cooperation with Ukraine and other partners on nuclear safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. Now I would like to pass the floor to Minister of Energy of the Republic of Lithuania, Žygimantas Vaičiūnas, please.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, dear Commissioner, Ministers, distinguished guests. First of all, Denis, thank you so much for organizing this event here. It's really important and really as we are passing through to the actions what we need to do for the future. Today we gather to commemorate a moment that forever changed the course of history. Chernobyl was not only a nuclear accident. It was a profound human tragedy, an environmental catastrophe, and a turning point that exposed the true cost of failures and the absence of accountability. Entire communities were displaced, lives were lost and irreversibly affected. The consequences crossed borders, reminding us that nuclear safety is never a national issue alone. It is a shared responsibility. Today, as we honor the memory of those who suffered and those who responded with courage, we must also recognize that the lessons of Chernobyl are not confined to history. They are painfully relevant today. Ukraine is once again at the center of global energy and security challenge. Russia's ongoing attacks against Ukraine energy infrastructure, including nuclear facilities and safe containment, demonstrate that the energy system remain vulnerable not only to accidents but to deliberate destruction and intentional measures. These changes, now we must think about energy security. Energy is no longer only about supply. It's about resilience, it's about decentralization, it's about ability to withstand and recover even under the most extreme conditions. Lithuania understands that deeply. And also we learned an important lessons from Ukraine. The resilience should be built locally, but also should be supported internationally. Ladies and gentlemen, Chernobyl taught us the cost of failure. Ukraine today teaches us the value of strength. Strength in rebuilding, strength in reforming, strength in moving closer to European energy system, not only physically, but also in values, transparency, safety, and sustainability. Lithuania firmly supports Ukraine's path towards full integration into the European energy market and its continued alignment with the EU standards. This is not only about Ukraine's future, it's about Europe's collective security. As we reflect on 40 years since Chernobyl, we must ask ourselves, are we doing enough to protect these energy systems of today from the new kinds of threats? Our answer must be clear. We must invest more in safety. We must act faster in times of crisis. We must build systems that are not only efficient, but also resilient. And we must stand united. Let us honor the legacy of Chernobyl, not only with remembrance, but also with action. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I would like to turn the floor to the Minister of Energy of the Republic of Poland, Miloš Motyka, please.
Thank you. Dear ministers, distinguished guests, we gathered here to commemorate those who suffered from the disaster in Chernobyl 40 years ago, the firefighters and liquidators, the people displaced from their homes. But at the same time, we believe that nuclear energy is still part of our present and our opportunity for the future. It remains essential for stable and affordable energy supply. It provides the baseload capacity that our economies need every day. Today, global demand for energy is growing incredibly fast. Our economies, our industries, our societies will need more electricity, reliable, predictable, and available at all times. We are aligned in our view that nuclear energy is the only source that can meet these needs at scale and in a stable way. But this comes with one key condition: it must be safe, always. And this is exactly why we are here today in this symbolic place. Chernobyl is not only a memory of the past, it's our shared responsibility. Today, this responsibility is even greater because of the war. The situation requires our constant attention. Our response should remain practical and focused. We need to continue supporting Ukraine with technical solutions, monitoring systems, equipment and experts. We are already engaged in this work, including through cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, of which Poland is a founding member, and we should continue this effort together. At the same time, we need stable and predictable financing for the protection and restoration of the confinement. This is not a short-term task. It requires long-term commitment and strong coordination between partners. We act as a community of partners united by responsibility and shared values. If nuclear energy is to be part of our future, nuclear safety must remain our absolute priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Now we turn to G7. I would like to pass the floor to Michael Shanks, Minister of State, Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero, His Majesty Government.
Thank you very much, Anatoly, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Commissioner. It's good to be here this afternoon, and thank you for all you've done to organise the last few days and today's visit, which was extremely poignant to be here 40 years after what happened at Chernobyl. We remember today all those who lost their lives, those who acted with incredible courage and sacrifice to protect others, often at a terrible personal cost. And their legacy isn't just one of the tragedy that we mark, but also one of responsibility to safety, to transparency, and crucially to our international cooperation. That responsibility feels particularly heavy on us all today. Russia's ongoing attacks on Ukraine's energy system have once again put civilian infrastructure, nuclear safety, and of course lives at risk. The United Kingdom is proud to stand with Ukraine, and I'm pleased that my department, the Department for Energy Security, will contribute £4 million this year towards Ukraine's nuclear safety and security, continuing the vital work that we have been doing together. This is, of course, part of the wider work of the UK-Ukraine 100-year partnership, which reflects our unwavering position that the partnership between our two countries will continue to grow in strength, not just in the months and years ahead, but in the decades ahead. And that partnership is about more than just today's crisis. It's about standing with Ukraine, not just in resistance, but in recovery, reform, and renewal. And of course, energy resilience is absolutely central to that future. It keeps hospitals running, homes heated, and communities functioning. And of course, it is a statement of sovereignty. No country should ever be forced into darkness by war. So let me be clear, Ukraine does not stand alone, and we continue to provide that support, but also work internationally to continue the important coalition against Russia's aggression, but also to rebuild the infrastructure here in Ukraine. The cost of complacency would be far higher than the cost of solidarity, and together we'll meet that cost. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I would like to pass the floor to G7 presidency to Ms. Barbara Pompili, please, Ambassador for Environment, France.
Thank you very much, dear ministers, delegates, and participants. 40 years ago on these days, the Chernobyl disaster took many lives and forced hundreds of thousands of people to leave their homes. Today we remember all of them and pay special tribute to the liquidators who sacrificed their lives in order to protect not only their fellow citizens, but the entire European continent, as radioactivity is not a localized threat. We will not forget their courage and the suffering that this disaster has caused. Beyond Chernobyl, Ukraine continues to rely on its heroes who, since 2014 and even more for the past 4 years, have been fighting in this war of aggression waged by Russia in blatant violation of the UN Charter and with complete disregard for international law. I would also like to reiterate France's admiration for the exceptional courage of the Ukrainian people, from civilians who have faced this year the harshest winter since 2022, to soldiers, men and women, standing up against the Russian aggressor on the front line. France and the international community have been supporting Ukraine for a long time in addressing the fateful consequences of the Chernobyl disaster. Within the G7 and with the support of EBRD, France contributed to the construction of the containment arch, a technological innovation that secures reactor number 4. The irresponsible attack of a Russian drone on the arch in February 2025 and the major damage it caused proved once again Moscow's careless cynicism. But once again, the international community showed support. Last year, France allocated €10 million for temporary repairs. However, the containment arch will need much more to be fixed and fully operational again. Accordingly, this is one of France's priorities for its G7 summit this year. And beyond the threats of the Chernobyl site, Russia relentlessly continues to strike Ukraine's energy infrastructures, including substations playing a vital role in the safety of the country's nuclear power plants, and illegally occupies the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. That is why our support for the resilience of the Ukrainian energy sector is more crucial than ever. Great progress has been made in the past 4 years, and I was particularly proud as Energy Minister when France was chairing the European Union of the very timely connection of Ukraine to the European electricity grid in February 2022, a crucial and concrete step on its path towards the EU. We will remain firm in our support to Ukraine, its sovereignty, its territorial integrity, and its people. You've bravery and determination, common respect. So do the heroism and dedication of those who helped to mitigate the consequences of the Chernobyl disaster we honor today. Thank you.
Thank you so much to France, and since it's a session of G7 did start, I would like to invite our distinguished G7 ambassadors, and I would like to give the floor to Carlo Formosa, His Excellency Ambassador of Italy to Ukraine. Please, Excellency.
Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, distinguished guests, we meet today in a place that embodies both the legacy of a global tragedy and the responsibility we share to prevent future risks. Italy remains deeply concerned about the critical energy situation in Ukraine, aggravated by Russia's systematic and deliberate attacks on the country's energy infrastructure. Protecting energy infrastructure is therefore not only an economic necessity, but a humanitarian and security imperative. Ukraine's energy resilience is essential for its sovereignty, for the functioning of its economy, and for the well-being of its citizens. This is why Italy, together with international partners, has been at the forefront of efforts to support Ukraine and its population, particularly in the energy sector. Here in the field alone, our contribution since 2022 amounts to over 240 million euros. This support is crucial not only to address immediate needs, but also to help Ukraine prepare for the coming winter and to lay the foundations for long-term recovery. In this context, Italy remains firmly committed to supporting nuclear safety and security, which remains one of the most urgent and sensitive dimensions of Ukraine's recovery, with almost 6 million euros in voluntary contribution for technical assistance. We are deeply concerned about the situation at Chornobyl nuclear power plant following Russian drone attack in February 2025, and by the continued risk affecting all Ukrainian nuclear facilities. The damage to the new safe confinement is a stark reminder that nuclear safety in Ukraine cannot be taken for granted. In this regard, the restoration and the reinforcement of the new safe confinement at Chernobyl is of paramount importance. Italy's commitment in this field is long-standing and concrete. We have contributed around 74 million euros to the EBRD Chernobyl Shelter Fund, and Italian industry, most notably Cimolai, played a central role in the construction of the arch that today protects the site. Looking ahead, it is clear that the scale of the challenge, both technical and financial, will require a renewed and coordinated international effort. And Italy therefore recognizes the importance of continued support for the repair, maintenance, and possible strengthening of the confinement system, in close coordination with the EBRD and AAI and all relevant partners. We stand ready to continue supporting Ukraine in this field, including in view of the pledging event scheduled for the second half of this year. This will be a key moment for the international community to reaffirm in concrete terms its collective commitments to nuclear safety, security, and the long-term recovery on Chernobyl. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I would like to turn the floor to His Excellency Ambassador of Japan to Ukraine. Please, Ambassador.
Dear Deputy Prime Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on the anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident, I wish to express my deepest condolences to all the Ukrainian liquidators who bravely confronted the disaster at great personal risk, as well as to all those who fell victim to the accident. I also extend my profound respect to those who continue to be engaged in nuclear safety and reconstruction of affected areas to this day. We are deeply concerned about the impact of Russia's attack on the confinement of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and the serious threat the drone attack poses. It is imperative that the international community speak with one voice in condemning and demanding an end to such actions by Russia and continue to support Ukraine. Since the nuclear accident in 1986, Japan has consistently supported the reconstruction of affected areas through the provision of medicines and medical equipment for affected people, as well as the dispatch of experts. Following the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident in 2011, Japan received valuable support and cooperation from Ukraine in various forms, including the sharing of nuclear accident experiences and specific and research collaboration under the bilateral agreement. In addition, through JICA, the Institute for Nuclear Research of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine and Fukushima University have also collaborated to make specific actions in Japan and put forward recommendations to Japanese authorities. Since Russia's full-scale invasion began in 2022, Japan has provided through IAEA a total of 27 million euros in assistance, including supply of relevant equipment, human resources development, and medical assistance. In addition, Japan has supported the installation of solar power generation facilities at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant through UNDP. While it is difficult to make financial support for the repair of the new confinement at this moment, Japan, as a country with its own experience at Fukushima, is committed to making continuous contributions to the safety and recovery of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. This includes leveraging the unique knowledge and expertise Japan has accumulated through its ongoing efforts toward the decommissioning of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Today, all of us had the pleasure to see the installations of solar panels here in Chernobyl, so thank you for this contribution. I would like to pass the floor to Her Excellency Ambassador of Canada, please.
First Deputy Prime Minister, distinguished guests, colleagues. Today we honor the heroes and the liquidators, the operators who stayed at their posts, the first responders who ran towards the danger, and the technicians who worked through the night to protect others. Where would we be now if it weren't for their action, their professionalism, and their humanity? It's a scary thought. Their courage is a powerful call to us all. Even today, we are each recounting exactly where each of us was when the news broke, a memory etched into our collective psyche forever. Although the Chernobyl accident happened 40 years ago, it is unacceptable that we must still be concerned with nuclear safety due to repeated attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, including this facility. Russia's ongoing occupation of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant violates international norms and puts millions at risk, if not the world. That is why earlier this year, Canada and the Netherlands led the charge at the IAEA Board of Governors to adopt a resolution on nuclear security in Ukraine. We stated clearly, Russian attacks on energy infrastructures are a direct threat to nuclear safety and must stop. Canada has a long history of supporting Chernobyl remediation through the G7 and the EBRD. To that end, just this past Friday, the Honourable Anita Anand, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada, announced an $8 million contribution for critical repairs to the Chornobyl new safety confinement structure, which was damaged by a Russian drone strike in February 2025. Canada condemns these actions in the strongest terms. Through our weapons threat reduction program, we are helping Ukraine reinforce its nuclear facilities and address emerging technological threats. Canada stands with Ukraine. We will continue working with partners to ensure nuclear security is upheld, not only for Ukraine, but for the entire world. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words and support. I would like to pass the floor to Ambassador Davis, United States Charge d'Affaires to Ukraine. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you so very much. First Deputy Prime Minister, ministers, distinguished guests, 40 years since history's most devastating nuclear disaster, we gather to honor memories. Memory of those who perished, memory of the firefighters, memory of the plant workers who rushed towards danger without knowing its full magnitude, memory of the liquidators who sacrificed their own health to contain the disaster, and the memory of the countless civilians whose lives were forever altered. Preeminent oral historian Svetlana Alexievich wrote, "Chernobyl is like the war of all wars. There's nowhere to hide, not underground, not underwater, and not in the air." Her words capture the total devastation and the profound human cost borne by those who faced an invisible enemy with no refuge. The lessons of Chernobyl, unfortunately, remain as urgent today as they were 40 years ago. For Ukrainians, these lessons are not abstract. They are lived experience. They shaped how communities understand risk, resilience, and responsibility even today through the generations. So I'm honored to join with representatives of so many countries who agree that nuclear safety and security require international cooperation, transparency, and unwavering commitment to the highest international standards. And as we sit here today in the shadow of the new safe confinement shelter, we are reminded that nuclear power can only be reserved for those responsible enough to use it. Chernobyl revealed that borders do not contain radioactive fallout, and that our shared safety depends on a shared sense of responsibility. So as we mark this solemn anniversary, America joins Ukraine and all the nations that are represented here today, not only in honoring the memory of the past, but in building a safer and a more secure future. The United States has been a major contributor to Ukraine's energy independence, recovery, and to Chernobyl's safety, providing approximately $370 million in support over these many years, these 40 years. We're calling on European and other international partners to provide resources and funding to support Chernobyl's repair and ensure that such a tragedy never happens again, and ourselves intend to announce new support soon. So let us honor those who were lost, not only by remembering them, but with action, as others have said, by recommitting ourselves to vigilance, to truth, and to the protection of all people from the nuclear dangers that transcend borders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you. I would like to pass the floor to His Excellency Ambassador of Germany to Ukraine, please.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. As a member of the G7, Germany has been involved in international efforts to address the consequences of Chernobyl for a long time, including in the EBRD framework and also through significant contributions to the funding of the NSC. In 2015, during our G7 presidency, we made it a priority to help close the financing gap, and we welcome France's approach as acting G7 presidency to maintain Chernobyl high on the agenda and gather support for the NSC. Germany has also worked in an additional bilateral format to support Ukraine through joint measurement campaigns in the exclusion zone, most recently in 2021, only half a year before the Russian invasion, carrying out a comprehensive radiological mapping of the sites. This map was of quite some importance after the liberation by Ukrainian forces of the occupied parts of northern Ukraine and Chornobyl. Germany will actively work to find a solution to carry out the necessary repairs of the NSC. The goal is to reach joint burden sharing and the participation of as many countries as possible in this important and challenging task. Today is an encouraging day in this respect. I can assure you that Germany will do its part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I would like to turn the floor to our EIB Vice President, Karl Nehammer, please.
Thank you very much, dear Deputy Prime Minister, dear Excellencies. We honor the courage and sacrifice of the Chernobyl liquidators, whose action protected generations in Ukraine and across Europe and remain deeply respected. This ceremony is a reminder of the importance of safety, responsibility, and international solidarity in the face of large-scale risk. Today, Ukraine continues to demonstrate resilience and professionalism in ensuring the safety of critical infrastructure under exceptionally difficult conditions. The European Union and the EIBG remain committed to supporting Ukraine in protecting, strengthening, and modernizing its critical infrastructure. For instance, EIB Group has provided 86 million euros to Ukrenegro, Ukraine's national electricity transmission system operator, to build protective anti-drone shelters to safeguard critical power substations. We stand and we will stand on the side of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And now I would like to turn the floor to Ambassador of Norway, one of the biggest contributors to recent contributions to the donor account. Please.
Thank you. Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers, distinguished colleagues. 40 years ago, the Chernobyl disaster forever changed lives across Ukraine, across Europe, and across the world. It was a moment that revealed not only a nuclear accident, but the profound consequences of design failures, weak procedures, and delayed communications. Above all, it became a lasting reminder of what is at stake when safety, transparency, and responsibility are not upheld. The renewed damages inflicted on this site by Russia's drone attack lays bare a continued recklessness and disregard for the safety and security that is hard to fathom, but it's plain for everyone to see. Norway condemns Russia's attacks on Ukraine. Norway was among the first countries Norway was among the countries affected by radioactive fallout. For us, Chernobyl is not only history, it is a reminder that nuclear accidents do not respect borders and that their consequences endure across generations. Today, we remember those who suffered, those who responded, and those who continue to live with the legacy of that day. But even a radioactive cloud has a silver lining. The Chernobyl disaster made it clear to Norwegians that events in Ukraine affect us. This realization has spurred on the cooperation between our countries. Today, we reaffirm our solidarity with Ukraine, and through our support program, Norway provides sustained and predictable support, including for nuclear safety and security. This is not just a technical matter, it is about protecting people, communities, and the foundations of resilience in times of war and peace. At Chernobyl, Norway contributes to essential safety and security work, from managing nuclear waste to strengthening environmental monitoring. In 2026, Norway will contribute 450 million euros to energy security in Ukraine. Of this amount, 46 million euros will be dedicated to strengthening nuclear safety. We also remain committed to the long-term safety of this site. Norway is a major contributor to the ICA fund, with total contributions exceeding 10 million euros. We continue to support efforts to restore and protect critical safety infrastructure following the recent damage. For us, this is not only about Chernobyl, it is about Europe's security. It is about a simple but vital principle that nuclear facilities must never become targets of war. 40 years on, our remembrance must now be matched by responsibility. We will continue to stand with you, with Ukraine, for safety, for resilience, and for a better future. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Before we end this session and turn to the final conclusions, we have two more elements. One is pre-recorded video from Acting Director General of Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development. And then we will have also signing ceremony. Please put the video on.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to join you today as we mark the 40th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster. This important occasion reminds us that nuclear safety is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing responsibility, requiring continuous attention, cooperation, and sustained commitment. The recent damage to the new safe confinement is the timely reminder of how vulnerable critical safety infrastructure can be of the enduring value of international cooperation in addressing nuclear risk for the benefit of Ukraine and the wider world. In this spirit, the Kuwait Fund reaffirmed its long-standing commitments to strengthening nuclear safety and mitigation. Environment risk. To date, we have contributed $50 million to the Chernobyl Shelter Fund through 4 grants. These contributions reflect Kuwait's broader approach to development cooperation, one grounded in partnership, solidarity, and shared responsibility. As the international community turns to the next phase of restoration, including repairs to the new safe consignment, our collective responsibility must remain coordinated and forward-looking. Early preparatory work and sustained financial support will be essential. Given the technical, radiological, and geopolitical complexity involved, a programmatic and phased approach, one time that prioritizes safety, visibility, and long-term sustainability is viable. In conclusion, the government of Kuwait, through Kuwait Fund, stand ready to continue work with our international partnership to help restore and safeguard Chernobyl. Thank you.
We are grateful to Kuwait for this commitment. Now I would like to turn to the final part of our conference. And before turning to the First Deputy Prime Minister with final remarks, I would like to pass the floor for 1 minute to our Chairman of EBRD International Chernobyl Cooperation Account, Representative Phil Bennett. Please, short comments on your side.
Thank you, Anatoly. It is a great pleasure to be here. I was here in this very room 10 years ago for the 30th anniversary. The mood was quite different: anticipation, pride, and accomplishment. Today I sense uncertainty, I sense urgency. But let me assure all of you that there is a plan and that we can succeed. We can get this done. But what we really need to do is to convert everything I've heard today, all of the spirit, all of the courage, all of the resolve, we need to convert into resources, very simply. We are about to sign a commitment, a grant allocation for 30 million euro, which will be the first part, the first phase of our response to the need to remediate the drone damage. But that 30 million takes up, roughly half of what we have in the ICA fund currently, because that money was designed for something else, not for this remediation effort. So we really need to transform and change and build on the breadth and depth of the donations to the ICA fund. We currently have 10 donors. That compares to 45 donors for the shelter fund. So we know that there are committed entities out there, committed countries with the resources that want to help. We've heard it today. We need to convert that any way we can into resources, and I must say, this year, because we need to get a start, get out there. We have a plan to complete this by 2030, but we need the resources by the end of this year, the commitments for those resources, in order to make that plan work. So thank you all for all the strength that you've shown in this room. But work with us, please, today so that we can protect this for future generations. We have a lot of work to do. Thank you again for all of your support.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. And I would like to turn the floor to First Deputy Prime Minister for the final conclusion remarks for today's event. Please.
Dear, very reliable friends of Ukraine, thank you so much. To sum up today's conference, I would like to express sincere gratitude to all the participants for their long-looking and content-focused discussion. Maybe today we were speaking about responsibility, how to preserve and enhance nuclear security in Europe, where Russia intentionally targets the very basics of this safety. Now we need to transform our coordination into mechanisms of action, and practical result is opening the international account managed by EBRD that will accumulate funds for recovery, restoring the new safe confinement. And this is about a wide-scale task. We need to raise about 500 million euros to recover the protective construction that protects Ukraine and Europe. And this year we have managed to mobilize 30 million euros for the pressing needs, and that makes it possible to start the required work already and to early procure the vital equipment. Today we heard commitments from international partners to cover more than 100 million euros more. We're grateful to EU, Japan, UK, Norway, France, Germany, Denmark, Italy, Canada, for their readiness to support this project and to contribute to funding. Once again, I'm very grateful for these investments into the safety of Europe and the world. Ukraine stands devoted to this challenging, technically challenging, but necessary work, and we rely on close partnership with all of you to continue this work. Thank you for your participation today. Thank you for your help, for your support. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, First Deputy Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience. Before we leave this venue, we would like to use the opportunity and invite the chairman of the station, Mr. Tarakanov, and as well as EBRD Director Baltazar Lindauer for the signing ceremony of the grant agreement number 6 of allocating 30 million euro for the first needs which are really needed here at the station. Please. Ось тут. Вони біля нас. Вони підпишуть. Сідайте.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the beginning signing ceremony of the grant agreement between European Bank for Construction and Development and the state enterprise Chornobyl nuclear power plant. ceremony is over.